Well, it is officially the holiday season, and according to a recent study by State Farm, nearly half of us are planning out of town travel. And nearly 60% of participants report drivers are more stressed around the holidays, worrying about finances, just having a lot of things to do and so busy. And with these to do lists a mile long and the clock ticking and everybody's on deadlines, how do we stay safe and focused while we're on the road? Well, today we have Jon Wey, a security and driving expert for State Farm Insurance, to talk to us about making sure that we are driving safely this holiday season. So, Jon, great to have you back. And we talked about how busy we are, and then we've got weather issues. I mean, just a lot to think about. So, what do we need to keep in mind as we're driving this holiday
Jane,
season?
yeah, you framed it up beautifully, and awesome to be back with you again this morning, Jane. Sincerely appreciate your time. Happy holidays, and really an important topic for us to be talking about as we progress through the holiday season. You hit the nail on the head. This is a challenging time to be on the roadways. I think a good many of us can attest to that simply by lived experience and navigating the roadways right now. But the data backs it up. This is indeed the deadliest time to be navigating a vehicle. In the macro view of things, we as a society drive less in the winter. But as we're driving, it's deadlier driving, and probably not surprising as to why that is true. As you all know, up in New York, roadways become snow covered and ice covered and very problematic. So just the sheer roadways that we travel become more challenging. You layer in the stressors that you mentioned off the top. I love the holidays as much or more than most, but it does add stress, right? I mean, the bringing together of friends and families is awesome, but the cooking and the cleaning and the packing and all the things associated with it, probably not as awesome. And those things do add up mentally. And we don't always think about the fact that those stressors sitting on the back of our mind actually add to our level of distraction in the car. And then thirdly, Jane, really the last piece of this puzzle that I think proves problematic is our inherent desire to multitask. It's kind of inherent in how we're wired these days, right? I mean, both personally and professionally, I feel like I'm always on, always doing something. And the car just kind of feels like if we're not on and we're not doing something, like, are we missing opportunities? Like, why aren't we all connected? And there's just this drive to continue to be doing whatever we were doing before we got behind the wheel. The reality is we don't know how to multitask. I won't get into the specific data, but the data tells us we're not good at multitasking,
Yeah.
even if we think we are. And so let's try to limit the multitasking, which starts to help limit the distractions.
Yeah, that FOMO and the double booking. There's a lot of,
Oh,
there's parties and, kids recitals and all that kind of stuff this time of year. So what do you recommend that people can do, like some real world applications to tone it down a little bit?
and it's easier said than done. I'll admit that right off the top. These things I talk about, it's not like I'm acing these things in my real world application, but a couple of things are under control, Jane. So one, a good number of the newer vehicles have awesome safety technology already built into them that are really intended to help limit distraction. So think about things like the Bluetooth connectivity option for your cell phone or the ability to enter in your destination in the navigation system. I find myself not doing these things in the driveway, but rather doing them while I'm driving down the highway. Let's be more intentional about, one, understanding what our car has available to us to help limit distraction, but then two, really lean into it before we enter the roadways. That's the time to be engaging with the technology, not when we're on the road. And similarly, right, the lowest hanging fruit and the most common example cited, but I think the most impactful, really trying to be diligent about how and where we're using our cell phones behind the wheel. It kind of ladders off with the first point there, right? If we've got our phone connected to the Bluetooth, there really shouldn't be much of a driving need for us to be engaging with that thing. But again, for the same reasons, I think a good many of us feel really compelled to do it. This is a call to action to be really doubly intentional about trying really hard to limit our engagement with that piece of technology when we're behind the wheel. I know it's not easy, Jane, but
It's
we've got an
not.
obligation.
We always have to just put it in the trunk of the car, and because otherwise it's
I've
just
debated
too
it. You'll flip to the back seat.
just too much of a distraction. And of course, we have talked about distracted driving, before, and we know the dangers. But if that doesn't motivate us, maybe will something? What do you think would?
And that's why I so appreciate you having me on this morning to talk about this potentially a little bit differently, Jane, because you're right that there's good progress that's been made societally. Certainly, we have hands-free laws in a number of jurisdictions, which we support. I think that's a good step in the right direction. I think it's cool when you see the billboards these days driving down an interstate where it will kind of tell us directly to stop doing certain things. I think that's pretty effective. But to your point, we're not seeing the results on the road to the degree that we want. We want zero fatalities, right? We want safer occupants of vehicles. And so how can we look at this problem statement a little bit differently? How can we think about it differently? Our response to that is let's view driving as a wellness activity, as a true opportunity to kind of disconnect ourselves from the crazy that exists everywhere else in our lives, like we've been talking about here this morning, and doubly so over the holidays, and lock into the comfort and the quiet comfort of being behind that steering wheel. Right now, Jane, my favorite 2 or 3 minutes of the day every day is when I help get my family off to school and off to work. And then I jump behind my truck and slam the door shut, and I just sit there. And I sit there in silence, and I gather my thoughts, and I appreciate the fact that the dog's not barking and the kid's not talking. I love my family. They're not talking to me. There's nobody trying to get a hold of me from work, right? Like, and nowhere in my life does that exist other than behind the wheel for those precious few moments. Now, here's the kicker. It doesn't have to be that way, right? If we were more intentional about trying to capture that magic of the quiet and then carry that forward into our daily drive, slowly but surely that starts to become more of our daily routine. And I promise you, you will start to feel a little bit more quiet in your headspace if you start navigating that way. And since we've been talking a little bit about teens, Jane, one other piece to this, I'm taking my role as a role model much more seriously these days. I have a 13 and a 14-year-old that are going to be driving in the not too distant future themselves. As I am thinking about trying to limit my own distractions and more specifically trying to not touch the phone or engage with the social media, it's no longer about me or trying to maintain my safety or prevent myself from getting in a wreck. It's helping my kids understand what this needs to look like. Because one thing we know as parents is that from the time they're 3, 4, or 5 years old, all the way up till the time that they leave our home, they're looking to us for cues. And I think this winter, we have a golden opportunity to start role modeling the behaviors that we want to see our teenage drivers take with them when they enter the roadways in a couple of years.
What a great idea and great advice. So where can people go for more information, Jon?
Please, if you have an opportunity, check out statefarm.com. We've got a whole bunch more that not only articulates the problem statements with some kind of scary statistics, but gives a lot of good content as to how we can all collectively think about doing better this holiday season.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you so much for this important advice. I hope everybody takes it. It's not worth the risk. So thank
It
you
is
so
not worth the
much.
risk. Thank you for your time, Jane.
Happy
Happy holidays.
holidays.